Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and back after just feels like a couple of days, we've got Logan. How are you, Logan?
Alex, I'm doing well. I was going to say it feels like yesterday, but yep, here we are, and talking about a seemingly mirrored result. So we don't know how fresh the information will be. It feels like a bit of a sense of deja vu, if you will.
That's it. Just roll the tapes of the discussion of the Stoke game, I guess. I mean, in fairness, I will say about this one, obviously another 0-0 against Preston on the weekend. It did feel like that first half, there was a lot of chances where if City, I mean, Pelkas in particular, if he had his shooting boots or his passing boots on a bit better, there was obviously just after the 30 seconds, it was the flick from Oscar to set him through on goal, and it was a poor touch. A bit later in the half, arguably a foul on the Preston defender, but he gets through, needs to just square it to Oscar for an easy tap in. There's a few huge chances there that pretty much City let go begging.
Oh, absolutely. And, 0-0, a game of fine margins, I guess, but you definitely got the feeling that we were the better side. And, I guess, we talked about how disappointing that Stoke result was in some ways, but also kind of realistic that Stoke is a really hard place to win. I think that this 0-0 draw perhaps feels a little bit more, difficult to accept, or the chances that with Bemoan missing, as you've already mentioned, but also the fact that it was at home against a team that, I guess you would have fancied. I know we were both pretty confident in our predictions heading into the game, and I think on the balance of play, they seemed like it was pretty fair predictions to have. And on another day, you can easily see how that game ends up, 1-0, 2-0, with some of those chances that were missed. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I cast my mind back to the QPR game's probably a good example where we win that one 3-0, but all three of the goals, either against a run of play or very much sort of made out of nothing. And you think on another day we get a 3-0 scoreline against Preston in this one, and everyone goes, wow, what a great performance, heading in the right direction. And I think sometimes supporters let the result kind of dictate their mood or their perception of the performance. And I think you're right. We should be putting a side like Preston away, and on another day we probably do. And you just sort of have to look at it and say, I think as Rosenior said on a few occasions, it's that consistency of performance that over time we'll see that consistency of results come through.
Yeah, a remarkably optimistic post-match interview from Rosenior, I thought, given the fact that we do it ourselves. Certainly, I would say that we're a club that has no strangers to, grim fans who look for doom and gloom, straight away. And I think this, as we said, it was a disappointing result in the sense that we didn't come away with the 3 points, which were certainly there on offer. But yeah, I think Rosenior's got a point, and it's good to remember that the team is still playing, quality football. It feels a little bit difficult to kind of accept at the moment, given that it's been sandwiched into 2-0 all draws and a disappointing away loss to Norwich. But overall, like the gaffer said, he was really impressed with the performance and the quality of the performance, and all it was really doing was lacking that finishing. I mean, if in 10 weeks' time we're thinking about all of the things that went wrong, and we're able to just say it was the finishing, but our football was pretty quality as far as the performance goes, that's a pretty good place to be in, considering that was our identity problem at certainly the beginning stage of the season, where we got off to a flyer and then really died before the World Cup break, and found ourselves languishing down the bottom end of the table. So I think that's just really worth keeping a perspective on. And I think that's somewhat settling to hear Rosenior speak the way that he did, and not come out with the dire, oh, well, our season's over kind of, which I know was the sentiment echoed from many of the fans.
Yeah, I feel like it's a broader issue than just City these days. You look at, I mean, some will say that it was a fair decision to sack Neil Critchley at QPR after 14 games. And I think Rosenior said it himself in the post-match. If he wins 5 games in a row, he's the best manager in the league, and everyone's, lapping at his feet. If he loses 5 games in a row, he needs to be out the door the next instant. So it's a cutthroat industry at the moment, and I think it's only getting more and more short-term. We'll talk later. We were talking before the episode about some of the long-term vision of the owners, which is really great to see. But I think it's a really level-headed approach from Rosenior, and I really hope that the club's owners and supporters in general are seeing that, as you say, we were on the edge of the relegation zone a couple of months ago, and the fact we're now sitting here disappointed to only take a point against Preston, that we're 6 or 7 points off the playoffs. You can I guess there's always going to be a shifting of goalposts or a shifting of aims for the season. You kind of escape relegation, you go, what's next? We want to make the playoffs, and you kind of keep setting the bar higher. But I think you at the same time don't want to set the bar higher and then get overly reactionary if we don't meet those increased expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think everything that you've talked about is certainly a great assessment of where we find ourselves. And I guess the long term plan for City is we're committing to a manager who is someone who is has his heart on his sleeve, and he's very committed to the cause of Hull. And if you consider the management or the front office as well, they seem to be, for the first time in a long time, very unified in the way they're approaching the club. It seems like there's some really good planning, but it's certainly that of a far longer term view as opposed to a very quick short-term promotion push. Although, I mean, you could make a case given the investment in player, but there is clearly a really obvious search for an identity as a football club, as opposed to just kicking and hoping as far as the next season goes. And I think that's a really important point that you mentioned, because it's something that we haven't seen for a very long time at City. Certainly in our time being fans.
That's it. On the player front for this game, there were 4 changes. One of those was Seri, who we've heard now is probably out for the next month. It's not as bad as it first sounds, because I think there's an international break in there. So I think it means he'll miss something like 3 games, although with these, you never really know how long they'll end up out for. And we got confirmation as well that Aaron Connolly's out for 4 to 6 weeks, which it just feels like it's such a frustration that we're just not able to see our attacking talent all on the pitch at the same time this season. And I'm sure Ajun and Tan must be so frustrated just through the sheer unluckiness of it, that they've invested so well and so heavily in that attacking talent, and we just aren't seeing the best of it on the pitch at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be frustrating. And I think the irony in that is that it was maybe only a week or 2 weeks ago we sat here talking about all the players coming back and how we can't wait to see, the selection headache for Rosinia and how it pans out. So, maybe in some ways we might have cursed that the playing ranks and the arsenal of attacking power that we did have at our disposal. But as you mentioned, it is frustrating, but it is, as we know, part of football, and certainly part of a championship season that is a long and grueling one.
That's it. On the more positive front, then we did see Xavier Simons come in, as we talked about on Friday. I'd like to think that was Rosie listening to the episode and listening to our suggestion, and looked absolutely fantastic while he played as well. So it was great to hear from Rosie after the game that he's supposedly signed on a permanent deal now, which was great news. And I thought he put in a terrific display. Yeah,
I thought he was fantastic. I thought that, just given the fact that, we had obviously given him our blessing to take the field on the podcast last week, to speak it into existence and watch the way that he went about his business was really impressive. And I guess it's somewhat interesting because, as you mentioned, with the Seri injury, now we're going to be forced to look at a new, central partnership regardless, which, is fascinating. Whether it's the right one or whether it's the one that we called for, it is going to be a test of our depth. But as you mentioned, the permanent signing is a really pleasing one, and a player who who really looks like he does have a bright future ahead.
And I guess the other player who started and I thought was one of his best games for us so far was Ozan Tufan playing. I thought initially he was sort of playing out wide, but then he did seem to come through the middle a bit as well. Really busy, snatched at a few of his chances and probably could have done a little bit better with them. There's the controversy, I say hesitantly, around the penalty decision. I think Rosinia was very insistent on it being a penalty. I think that's probably a manager backing his player. But look, I thought overall it was a good display from Tufan.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought, again, it's just always that thing that he does kind of feel like he has that little bit extra class, and on his day. I know that sounds like a very cliche statement to say, but he really does when he's fit. And confident and playing confidently in the championship, I think he would probably be one of the players that you would look for, like the kind of team of the season. But it's just a matter of playing the minutes and making sure that he strings the performances together, because when he's on form, he's an incredible player to watch.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I'll give my votes first, and then I'll grab yours for this one. I couldn't look past Simons for the 3 votes. I thought he was really impressive on debut, I should say. Looked really good, really sharp. Pretty much the same sort of player that we saw in that Fulham game when he did play his other start for us. I really hope it's a good sign of things to come for him, and that Rosie can trust him to start the game on the weekend against Bristol City. As you said earlier, with Seri out injured now, that does open up a spot for him potentially in the starting lineup. And I think he's the style of player that we've potentially been missing a little bit. So really positive from him. I gave the 2 votes to Tufan. As said, I think it was one of his better games for us. I thought he was really busy and contributed a lot to the general play, which was really pleasing to see. And I gave 1 vote to Oscar, who I thought, after a couple of comments from us last week about him being a little bit quiet against Norwich, I thought he had a really sharp display in this one. As I said, he sort of set the tone with that early flicked on header for Pelkas, and really put himself about, really got involved in the play, which was really pleasing to see.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think that's a pretty a pretty stock standard. Like you could almost throw a blanket over the field for 1 point, but I think that's a good shout. I did think Oscar looked far more lively. I had Simons as my 3 points as well. I had 2 for Tufan, and then in as I said, a kind of blanket over the field type race, I thought McLaughlin had another sneaky solid performance. I know it was another clean sheet. Clean sheets always feel much better when we get on the score sheet as well. But I think just building on the kind of form that he's been showing lately, he didn't do anything to harm his stock. So I'll keep his momentum going and give him the 1.
Well, it also provides a great segue. If we're talking Irish players, we can now talk Irish clubs. We did see the news sort of break overnight or in the last 24 hours. There's been a few rumours for a while now that Ajun's been looking at buying another club to add to the network of clubs, which seems quite a popular sort of strategy these days for club owners. With Dundalk FC in the League of Ireland rumoured to be of interest. Very, very early, very sort of, I guess, rumour-based news, this one. So not a whole lot to say on it. But I guess it's a positive, as we were sort of alluding to earlier, that the club owners look to have a long-term future for the club, and they're looking at it sort of, I guess, grounding the club's infrastructure and assets in a really positive way. And we were saying before the episode, I mean, I guess the big positive out of this is it gives that opportunity to bring in younger players, get their work permits at a European club, and come into the club a lot easier that way.
Yeah, look, it certainly sounds like an interesting prospect. And yeah, as you mentioned, Alex, you and I have talked about this a little bit off air, but one of the things that I just keep coming back to that I think is really important to acknowledge is, from the somewhat trauma that still follows the City fans around, given the battles with the alums over the last few years, and just basically a club at war with its owners, to be sitting in a position now, in the 12 months on, and really being able to speak into a new front office that is looking to develop the club in such a long-term way and invest in the future of it, is just such a refreshing change. I mean, I think sometimes, certainly how I felt when I came across this news, is it's almost so foreign that you don't really know what to make of it. It's almost one of those things that if it seems too good to be true, then it probably is. And so you kind of meet that with a little bit of healthy reservations about what's actually going on. But then when you come back to the simple fact that you've got not just the front office who seem to be willing to invest in the club, but also a front office that have a very healthy respect for the fans. And certainly in what we've seen of Ajun, and the transparency with Kessler, and just the way that they speak, and then I guess hiring Rosinia as the manager, it seems like they're making really helpful steps in the other areas to kind of solidify. Not only are we going to go forth and do these kind of, I say like crazy science experiments or brainwaves where they've got these new projects to work on, but it's not like they're just going off and doing them without any foresight. It seems like it's very calculated. It's very measured, and at every single step of the way, it seems to be a team push. It seems to be this unified approach where we want all parties on board, and I think that's just a fantastic way to kind of view the future of City. There's some really positive prospects ahead, and I think it gives us a huge reason and cause to be optimistic about what we're seeing. And that's a far cry from how we were this time last year.
Yeah, that's it. And I sort of look with increasing interest at the recent visits of, I think it's Murat Milka, I think is his name, the Turkish billionaire who's clearly a friend of Ajun and been in attendance at a few games. And I think Tan and Ajun have talked about looking at getting his investment into the club. And I look at, with all due respect to Ajun, I think his net worth is something around 100 million euros or maybe 200 million euros, something like that. It's not the sort of wealth that you'd think could afford to sustain two European clubs. So it may well mean that he's getting that sort of backing from other sources in Turkey, which would be really positive. And you sort of hope that when you look at this sort of stuff, that it's done with the foresight and the insurance that we're not sort of gambling our future on this sort of thing. But as you said, it's a real positive if it does go ahead, that it's exciting. And it's as you say, it's almost like, playing a game of Football Manager or something where you think these sorts of things don't happen with a club like City. And so you sort of approach it with a dose of healthy skepticism, but until it happens, I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, it's a very interesting prospect, given the fact that I think we were probably, I don't know the correct facts, allegedly on the market or one of the longest for sale clubs in the history of world football, because I know that saga went on for so long. But from all reports, we were up for sale. So to think about that, to what the future looks like, it's a stark contrast.
Yeah, that's it. Cool. Okay, well, let's do a quick round of Who Am I? And then we'll move on to our Bristol City preview. We'll see if you can get it after one clue. I don't think this one will be as easy to get after one clue, but we'll see how you go. Okay, so I made 54 league appearances for City and I scored 2 goals.
54 league appearances. So we're looking at probably 1 to 1.5, potentially 2 seasons with injuries, 2 goals. It's either a very out of form striker, a midfielder not known for goals, or a defender. 2 goals.
I'm actually surprised looking at this that he only got 2 goals for us, if that's any indication. Yeah. And also I'm surprised at the league appearances. I thought both of those I think are a lot lower than I thought they'd be. But,
am I allowed to ask if it was a loan spell?
He was a permanent signing.
Okay. No, I'd love to just throw a Hail Mary, but I don't even have a name that I could put out there with that.
I joined City in 2014. I left in 2017 after a loan spell with Wigan, and I am English.
Oh, loan spell at Wigan. Geez, this is it's hard when you get these questions and you have to think how long ago 2014 was, like reminding you of the seasons. But I'm trying to think Wigan players. I feel like Powell was a Wigan player. Who else could there have been that was Wigan related? Yeah,
So 2014. If this.
Actually, I think I know this one. Maybe not. Maynor Figueroa is.
It's a good guess.
I feel like he was from Wigan.
Yeah, no, that's a good guess. It wasn't Maynor Figueroa. So if it helps, I'll say, so 2014 was our second Premier League season under Bruce. And in 2017, I feel like he would have left after relegation under Silva, but did not play in the championship for us under Slutsky. But that's okay. Did you want to have another guess, or I can give you the next clue?
Yeah, give me the next clue.
So I played at centre back and wore the number 5.
played at centre back or the number 5 from me. Oh,
I would tell you the club he went to. Actually, what I'll do, I'll give you the club we signed him from. That I feel like is less of a clue than the club we sold him to. So we signed him from Sheffield United.
Okay.
So there's a couple of players that could be, so I'm not giving it away, I don't think.
I feel like the biggest clue here should be wore the number 5. 2 goals.
And only 54 league appearances. It's deceptive. I'll say
Sheffield United. Yeah, this has stumped me, and I know it's going to annoy me.
I'm trying to think of another clue I can give you because the initials will give it away. So I currently play in the Premier League.
I'm struggling with the Wigan connection, but
so maybe it was so he was on loan at Wigan from us. Like we didn't sign him from Wigan.
Okay.
So he was on loan at Wigan. I think it was his first season with us, and he currently plays in the Premier League.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not Harry Maguire. I don't know whether
it is. It is.
Oh.
54 league appearances seems really low for Maguire.
54 league appearances and the 2 goals. And I remember
because he scored against Borough, and
he scored against Borough in that. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's stumped me.
Yeah.
The Wigan was the thing that threw me off.
Because he was on loan there second half of that season.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think because that's it. Because I feel like he would have scored more goals than that. Because I know there was that Borough one, and I'm sure he must have scored maybe, I guess, one in the championship, maybe.
Yeah.
But only 54 because Robertson played like 100 appearances for us, and they obviously signed at the same time.
Yeah. I think it's the number 5. That's the one that I should have got. The fact that I missed that clue, couldn't pick it up. Yeah.
If I'd said we'd sold him to Leicester, would that have given it away or not?
Maybe, but I think the thing that is, definitely. I think if you had said Leicester, but the thing that was so surprising to me, as you said, it's the 54 appearances because it felt like he was there for far longer, and I would have also suspected that he scored more goals. From his time, but very, very interesting. Fair play.
There you go.
It sounds like a really underwhelming rap sheet for someone who became one of the highest transfer fees in the Premier League for a defender, if not the most. So, 54 appearances, 2 goals, a relationship with Wigan. You're kind of like, doesn't seem that impressive, but fair play to Harry Maguire. And
absolutely.
He's obviously gone on to some extreme heights.
That's it. We'll talk Bristol City now. So it's a replay of that first game of the season where we got the last-minute winner with a Seri goal from outside the box to beat them. In pretty reasonable form themselves. I think they knocked Norwich off the game before we played them, and they've only got 2 defeats in their last 10 games, so really similar run to us. Still managed by Nigel Pearson, of course, as well. But it's another one of those sort of cluster of games like the Preston game where I sort of look at it as it's a team sort of around us in the table. They're very much similar sort of capabilities and resources to us. It's just a game that we need to be winning if we want to, if we're serious about and if we're still really aiming for the playoff places. It's a game that we need to be putting away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the gap now, I think it stands at maybe 6, or maybe 7 points. And
I think it's,
and then
I think it's 7 now. Yeah.
And then I think if you factor in our goal difference, we're kind of looking at an 8-point deficit. So like, as you said, I think that the realistic expectations have probably changed since where we had maybe, placed them ahead of the Norwich game. And the fact that we didn't take more points against Stoke and certainly the Preston game. So, yeah, as you mentioned, it's kind of one of those games now where, we have to be winning and we have to really put together a string of wins. I think that that's probably the thing is the closer the fixtures kind of get towards the end of the season, if you haven't made up that ground and teams above you, keep winning and going on runs of form of their own, like that does become a pretty, insurmountable mountain to climb, so to speak. So, yeah, look, I really do hope that we're able to frustrate Nigel Pearson as much as we did as his post-match press conference from the first day of the season. I think I've never seen a more, utterly bemused and bitter man in a conference than he was that day, and it was delightful to see. So let's hope we can share in the same sentiment and give him another taste of that. But yeah, look, as you said, it almost feels like a free hit game. I think that we're not really in trouble of relegation. We're stuck in that kind of mid-table limbo land. It's amazing what a couple of victories can do, and how much the momentum shifts towards the end of a season when you do have the championship race. And I mean, we remember some famous seasons where certainly when you're sitting up in the top half of the table or the top six, the results towards the end of the season are crazy. There's no such thing as a winnable game, and it doesn't matter where teams are around you. The nerves kick in and all sorts starts to happen. So yeah, this next period's a really crucial one if there is any hope. And starting with this game, we have to take 3 points, or I think certainly it would be not doable.
Yeah, I think for the sake of this podcast, we don't want the end of the season tailing off and having not a whole lot to look forward to or to talk up if we're sort of just stuck in that mid-table group of teams. But yeah, no, you're right. Like you look at the next 5 games, it's Bristol City, West Brom, Coventry, Burnley, Reading. You think that's a pretty crucial run of fixtures where if you can get sort of 2 to 3 wins out of that group, and that's, there's a West Brom side there who've got 1 win in 6. So as you say there, in terms of form going out the window, anyone can beat anyone at the moment. You think if you pick up a couple of wins there, all of a sudden that conversation shifts again. But yeah, big 3 points to be taken against Bristol City this weekend. In terms of changes for the side, I guess I'm sort of trying to think. I'd almost just roll out the same 11 again. I can't think of any obvious changes to be made.
Well, there's the forced Seri change that, knowing that that he's not fit, that will make things interesting. But yeah, as you said, I think the obvious one is you probably, Simons will almost certainly start given his performance. There may be something funky happen in the midfield, but I think that, both Tufan and Simons probably, pick themselves.
Maybe Tete up front for Longman, I guess. But Longman's not even one that we mentioned in the review, but I thought he had a pretty reasonable game.
He was handy. Yeah, you're right. That's something along those lines, and probably I think if there is going to be any changes, it's most likely going to be in the midfield. And I don't think it's going to be a revolutionary change. I don't think we'll see anything like 4 changes. I think it'll be almost a straight swap for Seri, and we'll see a similar lineup take the field.
Yeah, that's it. Score prediction for this one?
Well, I mean, I went 2-0 for Preston last week, and I was bitterly disappointed because there's no way I didn't see goals being scored in that game. I feel like let's go with the deja vu theory. I'm going to stick to 2-0 and hope that this is a very, very pleasing outing for us.
Yeah, because it's at their place, isn't it? And we've been, apart from that Norwich game, we've been very strong away from home. So I'll probably join you there. I'll say a 2-0, maybe a 2-1, just to mirror that opening day win. But as we were saying, it's a game we've really got to be winning. So going to have to back us for the win in that one. Okay, well, that's just about it. So thank you for joining me for this one, Logan.
My pleasure, Alex. I'll probably see you tomorrow to do it all again.
That's it. At this rate, it's getting closer and closer together, but that's the way. And thank you, everyone, for listening in to another episode. We'll be back next week to review that Bristol City game and look ahead to the next few fixtures. But until then, come on, City.